So here we are, last Sunday in October, last Sunday of our tipping point. And today's talk is pointing the way. And you know, we're very fortunate as humans. We have had way showers, always. There have been way showers in our lives throughout history. On the grand scale, worldwide, throughout history, we have been given great teachers. Moses, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Dalai Lama. It goes on and on. Throughout history, we have always been given these great teachers. Someone is always pointing a way for us, and we're to follow. And there has always been people like that. These are the way showers for us. These are the people who speak truth, and they point us to enlightenment. Sometimes we get it, and sometimes we don't. But we always have these people around us. You know, sometimes we create a faith tradition around the person instead of the teaching. And I think that's what happened with the Jesus narrative to a great extent. Jesus became the story instead of the teaching. The things that Jesus spoke about were universal truths. They were meant to apply to all of us. They were universal truths. And people began to apply them only to the personality of the man. And in that way, we lost the message. And the same could be said with other master teachers along the way. We start to separate it. We start to interpret the words as being true only of the person speaking them, instead of being true of mankind. It's supposed to be a how-to book. It's supposed to be a guide to life and not about only one person's life. And in that way, you know, the Buddhists have an old saying about the finger pointing to the moon. Have you ever heard that expression? It's an old Buddhist teaching. It says, truth has nothing to do with words. Truth can be likened to the bright moon in the sky. Words, in this case, can be likened to a finger. The finger can point to the moon's location. However, the finger is not the moon. To look at the moon, it is necessary to gaze beyond the finger pointing. And that makes sense, right? The finger is not the moon. Our teachers point the way. Our teachers are like the finger. They're the ones speaking the truth and pointing the way. It's our responsibility to experience the truth, to experience it. We must gaze beyond the finger, gaze beyond the teacher, gaze beyond the words, and directly experience the moon, the truth, for ourselves. The finger is not the moon. And these great teachers, they all spoke universal truths. And they all did it their own way, because we are individuals, because we are all unique and different. An individual is outpicturings of spirit. So they each spoke the truth, these universal principles that are forever eternal and alike, but they spoke them their own way. They used their own words. They used their own analogies. They used their own metaphors and parables in speaking the truth, but the truth itself is universal. And they called spirit by different names. There was a bunch of different names throughout history to refer to spirit. We call spirit Allah, Yahweh, Brahman, Jehovah, Satnam, Buddha, Atman, the Christ. We have many, many names for it, but the universal truth of spirit is the same. It is the same. And the belief in a universal spirit is the same. And what is true regarding spirit is the same. Those definitions, those qualities that we apply to spirit, they are all the same. Bishop John Shelby Spong said this. He said, God is not a Christian. God is not a Jew. God is not a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist. I honor my tradition, but I don't believe my tradition defines God. It only points me to God. And that's what all of our faith traditions do. They point the way. They point us to the way. But the experience is uniquely ours. God is love. God is power. God is peace. God is wisdom. God is beauty. Those universal truths are just that. They are universal and they are truth. And the words that we use to describe our God, our spirit, those are just the words. Those are just the fingers pointing. We can say the words, but not have the experience. Saying the words is not having the experience. We can say the word beauty, but it is up to us to experience what beauty is in our own world. What is beauty like to me? What is my own personal idea of beauty? I am a unique and individual expression of spirit. What does beauty mean to me? Because it's going to be different for you and you and you for everyone. And it is up to us to experience beauty with our eyes and our ears and our hands and our skin. You know, we can't just talk about it. It goes beyond the words. You know, I can I can stand in a garage. Doesn't make me a car. You know, we have to go beyond the word. We have to experience beauty the only way we can through these vehicles that we are inhabiting temporarily. These universal truths can only be experienced by us, through us and as us into the world. You know, we say the word God. We believe in God. We believe God. But we are the only way God works in the world. We don't see God standing on the roadside picking up trash. We see human beings standing by the roadside picking up trash. That is spirit in form. That is God doing the work in the world. That's the only way we see God doing the work in the world, is through us. Ernest Holmes wrote a commentary to the Science of Mind textbook, the original that he published in 1926. And in this commentary, he said this: if we expect to see God, we will have to see him our way. In other words, God is an invisible principle as law and an invisible personalness as presence, both of which are immediately everywhere. Immediately everywhere. This invisible principle as law must govern the universe intelligently, and this invisible presence as personalness must personify itself everywhere. Everywhere. So that means everywhere we look is spirit. Every blade of grass is spirit. Every human life is spirit. Every animal, every bug crawling on the surface, every bird in flight, everything in the manifest universe is the personalness of God showing up in form. We demonstrate love. Spirit has an outlet for love in the world. We become peaceful in our hearts. Spirit shows up as peace in the world. We are the way that these qualities of God make themselves known. And this is why we call this a practical spirituality. We have to do more than talk about God on Sunday morning. We get to live these principles every day. We get to be that in the world. I can say God is love, but if I'm all busy flipping off people on the freeway, that's not loving. You know, being love in the world is spirit showing up as love, and that is demonstrating what we believe. We have to demonstrate it, or else we're no more than just the finger pointing. We're not the experience. Not that kind of pointing. I just got it. That was funny. Not that kind of pointing. We have to be that in the world. The finger is not the moon. The finger is not the moon. The pointing to is not the truth. The map is not the territory. When you look at the map of San Diego, it's not San Diego. The map is not the territory. It is just a tool we use to point us in the right direction. And the great teachers of the world were our maps. The great teachers past and present are our maps. They show us the way, but they are not the territory. On a personal level, we have our own Buddhas, don't we, in our lives? We have a Buddha in our life. We have a Jesus. We have a friend. We have a teacher. We have a family member. We have a spiritual companion or a leader. We have someone in our life that we know on a personal level who will speak truth to us, who will speak truth when it's easy, and will speak truth when it's difficult. We have those people in our lives personally. I hope we do, don't we? You and everybody, we have that friend. We have that special someone. We have that teacher. We have that person we call when things get rough. We have that best friend. We have that mentor, whoever it is. These are also our maps. We have GPS systems. We have someone in our lives who is willing to speak truth to us when we forget it. And in that way, we use everything in our lives to guide us. Everything in our life, everything that happens, we can use to guide us. Everything can be a map. Everything can be the finger pointing to the moon. Everything that we have around us can guide us to our spiritual unfoldment, whether we consider it good or bad, or positive or negative. Sometimes the greatest spiritual growth we ever have is from the negative stuff, from the ow part of growth. It points the way to our healing. It points the way to where we're holding on to a false belief somewhere that we have to let go. Sometimes having someone speak the truth to us is trying, and we don't really want to hear it. But when we're open to it and we resonate to it, that is a healing. That is a healing. You know, sometimes we're trying too hard. You know, there's a Buddhist story about a young student who was sitting in meditation, and he was really sitting in such a determined manner. Boy, he was going to get it, you know. He was just going to get it. And the master's teacher kind of snuck up behind him, observed him for a while, observed he was just concentrating way too hard and trying to make stuff happen. And he leaned over to the student, and he said, "What are you doing?" And the student looked at him and said, I'm trying to be a Buddha. And the teacher said, "Oh, I see." And he walked over and he scooped up some sand off the ground and he started pressing the sand between his hands. And then he was pressing the sand harder between his hands. And the student finally looked at his teacher and said, "What are you doing?" And the teacher said, "I'm trying to make glass." Trying to make glass. Sometimes we try too hard. Sometimes it's just about being open and receptive. But everything in our environment teaches us. Everything guides us. Everything is a finger pointing to the moon. Everything is a map showing us the territory. The finger is not the moon. The map is not the territory. And the self-image is not the self. Ernest Holmes said, in Search for Truth, he said, "It is this discovery of the inner kingdom, with all its beauty and power, with all its law and order, with all its peace and joy, that is the search of every person. For we all search for the truth that Jesus said, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." We all know that there is something lost beyond the horizon of our experience, and through divine intuition, which is placed there by a power greater than we are, we ceaselessly search for that something which will make us whole. And the thing is within us. The thing is within us, and it is pointing the way. See, there is more than the historical teachers, and there's more than our friends and families. There is also that own inner guidance. There is our intuition. So in addition to the ascended masters throughout history, and in addition to our family and our friends and our relatives and our spiritual teachers and mentors, there is the inner wisdom. There is the inner wisdom, and we all have it. It is that inner voice. It is that still small voice that we get to hear when we get quiet enough. When we close the outside away for a few minutes and get still and get quiet and go within, that we can finally hear it. And then how many times have you talked about, oh God, I had a feeling that, right? Fill in the blank. Or, I just something about this just doesn't feel right. And so you don't do it. Or, man, I knew that was right as soon as I saw, the job or the boss or the other, whatever it was. So intuition doesn't only have to come to us in the quiet of meditation. Intuition is always speaking to us. If we listen, if we're available, if we stop, and if we check in with ourselves, instead of going from action to reaction right away, have that gap, have that little pause, and go within and check in. Yeah, my body's trying to tell me something. My nerves are trying to tell me something. My stomach is trying to tell me something. The hair on the back of my neck is trying to tell me something. We are being spoken to all the time by Spirit. Haven't you had those experiences? Good, I'm so glad, because that is intuition too. It's not only reserved for meditation, it speaks to us all the time. It speaks to us all the time. And it is up to us to widen that gap. Widen that gap between action and reaction. And check in. Because that internal voice, that voice of the divine, that is the seed of perfection nestled within us. That is also pointing the way. And when we listen, and we listen and we respond, there's the moving the feet part. We have to listen to the voice, and it requires something of us. Then we don't go wrong. We don't get confused, or we don't lose our way. We're forever being guided. We're forever being guided. And it is up to us to listen. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, search out your own mind. Be true to your own belief. Penetrate more deeply into your own consciousness. Learn to wait in the silence of your own soul for that vision which has come to the good, the just, and the wise of the ages. Carry the torch of truth and reason, brought down through the ages and is now handed to you. Advance on chaos and unbelief and prove your faith through your works. This is way bigger than just talking about on a Sunday morning. This is way bigger than just a finger pointing at the moon, or a map showing us a territory, or a self-image instead of a self. This is bigger than that. We are greater than that. You are more beautiful than that. Spirit is living through us. Spirit is living through us. Nothing less than Spirit is living through us and as us into the world. With all of the qualities of God, not some of them. There are no favored people. God didn't share something with a group and not share it with everybody. All of us are having an experience of life, and that experience is the truth of us as spirit. And yes, we're temporarily housed in a body. And yes, we're temporarily getting waylaid by the illusion of separation, that we're different and apart from each other, but we're not. There's only one life. It's the life of God. It's the life of Spirit. It's individualizing itself as each one of us. And we get to share in all of the qualities of God. We get to share in the entire mind of God. And Spirit outpictures as us. And Spirit longs to do the work as us. as us. And when we remember the truth of who we are, when we remember the moon and we forget about the finger, we gaze beyond the finger and we realize the truth, we realize the moon, then that's how we begin to act. That's who we show up being in the world. You know, we are how God works. We are how God works. You know, last week, I don't know if you know, some of you know this, but last week my son had surprised me and drove down from Sonoma, and then he left Sunday morning really early, and I remember telling you people, oh, it was so exciting. I had, you know, AJ with me for a couple of days, and he drove back up, and as I was leaving church a week ago, Sunday afternoon, I get this phone call that he's been in a car wreck just outside of Oakland on the way up. And so I would like to tell you that I went right to prayer, knowing the truth. But honest to God, I struggled with it, and the fact is, I let loose a stream of expletives that would make a Marine blush. And I went into fear, and I went into hell, and I went into terror for a few seconds. And then I remembered who I was. And then I remembered who I was. And then I remembered what my response is, and then I went to prayer. But you know, that human stuff just came flooding right up, and it just overwhelmed me, and I went right to hell. But I didn't stay there. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't build a condo. I didn't pitch a tent. I just went in and out really, really quickly, went right to prayer, made the phone calls. He's fine. Bumps, bruises, concussion. Bottom line is he's great. You know, everything worked out fine. We forget. Then it's our job to remember. Remember who we are. Remember, we are the way God works in the world. We are the way God works in the world. We are more than the finger just pointing to the moon. We are more than the map just representing the territory. We are more than the self-image. We are the self. We are the self. We are the place where spirit makes itself known in the world. And what happens is now we know this. We go out in the world, and then we can be that for others. Then we get to be the finger pointing to the moon. We get to be the map. We get to be that for other people. We get to be the place where peace shows up through us and then brings peace to the entire situation. We are the ones who bring love into the equation so that love rules the day. We get to be the one to be the abundance in the illusion of scarcity and lack, and we allow abundance to flow throughout every situation we're in because we remember who we are, and then we can be that for everyone around us. And then each one of us become those little lights, become those centers of healing that the world is calling for, because make no doubt about it, the world is calling for us. The world is calling for us. We are the ones who have been called to up-level the consciousness of the planet. We can't increase the consciousness of everyone, but we can with everyone around us. Not by talking about it, not by the words, but by what we do in the world. We are the hands and the feet, the eyes and the ears of spirit. And it is up to us to do the work. It is up to us to be that. We are how God works. We are how God works. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, God is love, God is givingness. And we ought to be the beneficiaries of the love and the givingness that God is. And because we are humans, we may delay that. But our time of salvation is at hand. Our time of salvation is at hand, which means the time of complete fulfillment. That means we know who we are. we remember who we are each and every day, and we act accordingly because we are God doing the work. Thank you so much.